What is down, everybody? It is your main course, Little Pancake. Welcome back to another video. Today, we are back with some animals. Well, a animal. We are moving across the sea. Moving south a little bit. A little ways. So the last series was all about the Philippines. And now we have moved to New Zealand. Those little islands next to Australia. What's in New Zealand, you may ask? Well, I don't know. Let's find out. There is a species of penguin called the yellow-eyed penguin, and that's what we're going to talk about today. All right, the yellow-eyed penguin. Scientific name is Megadiptes antipodes. It is the only surviving member of that genus, Megadiptes, and Megadiptes means large diver. Comes from the Greek word. Pretty snazzy. It is natively known as Hoiho in the native language of Maori, and it is endemic to New Zealand and only New Zealand. Let's go. Let's go. The most closely related penguins to the yellow-eyed penguin are crested penguins, so there's a few species of that, I think. So, they look similar. The penguin resides in, as I said, New Zealand, but most of their habitat and breeding grounds are on the eastern and southeastern coastlines of the South Island, and then they also live on some islands south of that, such as the Stewart Island, Auckland Islands, and Campbell Island. They were first described by Jacques Bernard Hambron and Honore Jacquinot in 1841. So, a couple of cool dudes that found a cool penguin. And while I was writing this down, I thought to myself, the first person to ever see a penguin must have been very confused. Like, penguins look weird, They got flippers. They got, these wings. Think they could fly, and then he jumps in the water. And you're like, whoa. And then they don't have knees. Why don't they have knees? I just thought that was an interesting concept. So, there were 3 subspecies of Megadiptes antipodes. However, only one of them still remains. Antipodes is the species that remains. Subspecies Waitaha went extinct around 1347 to 1529 is the estimate there. So, a pretty big estimate, but all you need to know is it's extinct. And then subspecies Richdale was a dwarf species, and it was actually hunted to extinction in the 1300s. So, our boys are survivors. They've got that raw survival instinct. They outlasted the other 2 losers. May they rest in peace. So, you go to New Zealand, what do you need to look for? Well, a penguin is a good start. The yellow-eyed penguin can most easily be distinguished by the band of yellow feathers surrounding their eyes. So look for yellow around the eyes. Their eyes are also dark pale yellow. 2 weird adjectives put together, dark and pale, but look at them. I mean, doesn't dark pale look about right? So that's the easiest way. That band of yellow feathers also encircles, kind of shoots back to the back of the head. And then the rest of their face and their crown, that's their crown, is a light gray color with some yellow specks dabbled in. And then the sides of their neck and head are light brown, and their back and tail are a bluish blackish color, and the tops of their fins are as well. And then the rest of their bodies are flat white. Undersides of their flippers, their chest. Now, if you're looking for juveniles, they do not have that yellow ring around their eyes yet, so look for a normal, lame-looking penguin. They are the largest penguin to breed on the mainland of New Zealand, and the 5th heaviest species of penguin ever. They stand at about 24 to 31 inches tall, that's 62 to 79 centimeters, and then they pack some weight. They can weigh up to 24 pounds, 11 kilograms, so they can put on some pounds for those short little fellas. They can live up to 20 years old, and males typically live longer than females, which is unlike the human race, but that's due to the male ability to think. This difference in average lifespan leads to a roughly 2-to-1 ratio of males to females by the age of 10 to 12. So there's quite a few more males than females, which is not typical for a lot of species. Their generational length is estimated to be 9.9 years, and then they are mostly a silent species. They don't talk much. They don't vocalize their feelings. I've tried to get it out of them. I mean, I've sent some of them to therapy. They tell them, you need to express yourself, but they won't. They don't like to. The only noises they'll make are these bray-like calls at their nesting sites and when they're breeding. But yeah, they don't want to open up to me. So maybe you guys can chat with them, get them to tell you a little more. I don't know. Now, I told you that the main population of yellow-eyed penguins was on the South Island of New Zealand. It was previously believed that that's where they originated. However, recent research has revealed that they arrived on the main island in the past 200 years, and that they originated in the subantarctic region of those islands down there. And they arrived to replace the extinct Waitaha species. So when they underwent speciation from the Waitaha species and the Rich Daly species, our guys were down south on those islands and speciated, and then the Waitaha species went extinct, so they were like, free land? Free land, anyone? So they kind of pulled a Great Britain, except the species was already extinct before they got there. So there are now two main populations of yellow-eyed penguins. There is the northern population and the southern population, and there is not much gene flow. There is very, very minimal gene flow between these populations. So I'm not saying anything crazy, but could see some speciation in a couple thousand years. So a little hot topic amongst the New Zealand zoological community, which I know we're all deeply invested in the New Zealand zoological community, but kind of a topic of debate is whether or not species are colonial nesters. So do they nest together as a colony, or are they individual nesters? That's a hot topic. That is constant. No one has come to an agreement. So and why that is yellow-eyed penguins, unlike most of the Antarctic species of penguins, they do not nest within sight of each other. They nest near each other, but not like next to each other. They're spread out far enough to where they can't see the other nests. So does that make them individual? Does that make them colonial? I don't know, because the colonial kind of side of it is that they often go off and hunt and return in small groups. And then when they get back, they spread off to go back to their nests. So they are, in a sense, working together to provide for these chicks, but they're not necessarily together when they're on their nests. So it's a hot topic. Let me know what you think down in the comments. It's an interesting quandary. It's an interesting quandary. Quandary? Is that a word? So where do they like to nest? They often nest in dense coral forests. That's their favorite place to nest, and they like to be secluded from human settlements and human activity. However, that's becoming harder and harder to do in the day of humanity spreading like a wildfire. They sometimes are found nesting in areas where livestock are present, nesting on farmland, very close to civilization, which is not beneficial for them. You gotta do what you gotta do. You can't just stop having babies, That wouldn't be good. But in the sense of breeding, and having babies, how do they do it? They begin at 3 to 4 years of age. So they breed for quite a while. If they start at 3 to 4 and then live to 20, it's 16 years of breeding. That's a lot of breeding. And they also find long-term partners to form relationships and breed with for the long haul. A lot of birds do that, which I think is interesting. The nesting sites are typically chosen in August, and then by September they'll lay on average 2 eggs and incubate those for 39 to 51 days and then the chick is born. And incubation is shared among the two parents, so they both are responsible for making sure the baby don't die, which is very sweet. The chick is born, and for the first 6 weeks, one parent is always guarding the chick and staying at the nest. And this switches between father and mother. One parent will stay and one will go hunt for food. And then these hunts last typically all day, sometimes not. I'll get into that a little later. And then they'll come back, feed the chick, feed the parent, feed themselves, and have a wonderful, wonderful time together. And then after 6 weeks, both of the parents will leave the chick, go off to get food. The chick can defend itself against the ferrets and weasels and dogs and humans and Godzilla, probably even maybe. And then by mid-February, the chicks will fledge the nest, and they are independent from then on. From laying the egg in September to the chick leaving in February. That's when things are for real. I mentioned they go out and get food. Well, what do they eat? About 90% of their diet is made up of fish. They like fish. Primarily demersal species, which this means that they live near the seafloor or on the seafloor. So examples of this are silver shades, blue cod, red cod, and opal fish. Those are some of the favorites of the yellow-eyed penguin. And then a little side note, red cod are quite a bit more nutritious than blue cod. However, red cod populations have began to decline due to heavy fishing pressure and warming sea temperatures. So the penguins have been forced to feed primarily on the less nutritious blue cod, which has led to some problems. And then the other 10% of their diet, most of that is made up of crustaceans like krill. So they'll go after krill from time to time, maybe if they aren't having much luck with the fish. They're pescatarians. There actually is a word for that. Hold on, I wrote that down somewhere. Piscivorous. Okay, so how do they hunt? Well, they go at it, man. So there's typically two types of hunting trips when they are breeding. There are day trips and then short trips. So in a day trip, the bird that is hunting will leave the nest at dawn, return in the evening, and they can go as far as 25 kilometers on these trips. And there are also short trips that typically only last a couple to a few hours, and the birds typically don't go further than 7 kilometers away. But when they're out there, they are menaces to the fish community. They can dive as deep as 240 meters, which is 787 feet. That is insanely deep for a bird. And then when they're out there, they're not top dog. They gotta watch out. Sharks, seals, and sea lions are typical predators. Things can get hairy out there at times, but they try their best. You know what I mean? They try their best. They are considered to be one of the rare species in the world, rare species of penguin in the world, and they are listed as endangered on the IUCN Red List. It was first listed as threatened in 1988, and then they were moved to endangered in 2000 and have stayed there since then. In 2007, they had an estimated population of 4,000, and the most recent estimate was 2,600 to 3,000, and that was in 2020. They're not rapidly decreasing, but 4,000 to 3,000, that's a 25% drop in 13 years. That's not good. And then the population is predicted to still be decreasing. A big factor of this was in 2004, there was a disease that killed around 60% of the chicks on the Otago Peninsula, which is one of the bigger communities. And then a similar disease recently has infected a population on Stewart Island, and treatment options have been in the works, and they have made a vaccine with an 88% success rate of curing the disease, which that's interesting. I don't know how practical it is. Give each penguin on an island a vaccine. I don't know if that would be more beneficial or more harmful, handling them. And there is no conservation push among zoos. Yellow-eyed penguins cannot be found in zoos due to their inability to reproduce in captivity. They simply won't do it, which I don't blame them. If I had a bunch of people watching me all the time, I ain't doing that stuff, man. That'd be weird. And studies have shown that a human presence in general negatively impacts their foraging and breeding behaviors. So tourism, research, agriculture, humans walking around, it's predicted to have a pretty negative impact on the general lives of the penguins. And then along with this human presence hurting the penguins and declining their numbers, other threats include general human expansion and taking over of their habitat. The fishing industry, like I said with the red cod, overfishing can cause problems for our penguins. Climate change, as also the oceans around that area have been getting somewhat warmer, affects the fish, which affects the penguins. And then invasive species have also caused problems. Dogs and cats will mess them up, and then introduced stoats and ferrets will go after the babies, and they can cause substantial problems. But the worst thing going for them right now is definitely us. The humans in the area are definitely what's causing the most problems. The status of the sub-Antarctic population is not as well documented and researched, so there's a lot more uncertainty in the status of that population. Whether or not they are declining or thriving, don't really know. What has been done about this? What are we doing to help protect this penguin, the last of its genus? In 2007, a reserve was established that protected about 10% of the mainland population. So that's good. That's 10% of the population that people can't get on. People can't go fondle the penguins. Don't fondle the penguins, guys. Jeez. And then in 2010, the yellow-eyed penguin was granted protection by the Endangered Species Act. So, once again, no fondling the penguins. Just cut it out, man. And then in 2020, an updated recovery and action plan was made to put some more effort towards preserving this species and maintaining its habitat and food source. Work is being done. Hopefully the work works. That's always the goal, is to see a not decline in numbers, right? Stable population, good. A growing population, great. That's that. And now, the penguins, a little shout out to where these penguins have been. They appeared on the reverse side of New Zealand's $5 note. Got some clout there. They're also the mascot of the Dunedin City Council's Recycling and Solid Waste Management Campaign. Kind of a big deal. Managing your solid waste is pretty important. And recycling too. I mean, come on now. And then when our boy really hit big time, he was featured in the farce of the penguins. It was, man, he hit the big time. It was crazy. And then, just like that, in 2019, yellow-eyed penguin was named Bird of the Year in New Zealand. I mean, he is on a roll. But that's not it. Because in 2024, he said, hey, give me that title back. Bird of the Year again. 2-time Bird of the Year right here, boys. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the yellow-eyed penguin. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned a lot about the penguin. I hope you found it in your heart to feel for this creature and wish upon a recovery, a speedy recovery. I really appreciate you guys for watching these videos. I'm having a lot of fun making them, having a lot of fun recording them. It's been awesome. So smash like, subscribe if you haven't already. If you have, there's a kiss. You can save that for later. Use it now, whatever your heart desires. Thank you all so much for watching. Have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. If you can make someone else's day better, you go for it. You do it. You make that person's day better. It'll be worth it. It'll make you feel better. Making someone feel better makes you feel better. That's what I've found out in my many tumultuous years. That's all I got for you. Thank you. And I will see all of y'all later.